Hey everyone, and welcome back to Unveiling Beauty. So excited to be back on the show today with you, Mr. Carver. How are you?
My co-host is back. I'm thrilled. I missed you so much. I know you had to do save the planet, but I love having you on the show with me.
Well, thanks for holding down the fort while I was gone. Super excited about today's episode. But before we jump into that, I know there's been a lot of questions on where could we find all the different episodes of Unveiling Beauty. So we now have some destinations to go to. Em, and tell them all about it.
Yeah, so really cool, guys. We've been working hard to make sure at your request that we compile and really compress in one location, actually a couple of easy locations for you to access all of the previous episodes of Unveiling Beauty. So the first place is you can go to our YouTube channel and subscribe and have access to all the previous episodes and watch them at your leisure. We have also created an Unveiling Beauty Instagram account that we'll be adding to. And in the future, we might be posting some stuff as follow-up shows, just to tease you guys. But we'll continue expanding our reach. This Unveiling Beauty series has turned into, I don't know, Nick, how many episodes we've done, but it has been
lost track.
A long ride already and just been so well received. So go check out those other places if you missed some of those previous episodes, because we've had some pretty good content, I would say, on this show, wouldn't you?
I would say for sure. And before you go jump over to those platforms, make sure you share this episode on all your social platforms so everybody can learn all about today's topic, which is all about blonding. So, Ammon, who do we have on the show today?
I mean, that's one of the things we're known for, right? We have the best of the best on this show. So today we have the legend, Sonya Dove, coming on to talk to us about Brilliant Blondes. I always have to do the voice, the legend, the myth, Sonya Dove. And then we also have special guest, Briana Cisneros, on the show today too. So two very high respected artists to show us all about Brilliant Blondes. And what a perfect time of the year.
I love it. All right, so let's welcome our first guest to the show.
All right, so first up, I'm going to welcome Briana, and I have to look down to make sure that I read her title correctly because she's got the title. She's almost the breaker of chains, the mother of dragons, that type of deal here. So she's Willow Professionals Global Color Ambassador and CEO/founder of the Hair Hoodlums. This is Briana Cisneros, everybody. Welcome to the show, honey. How are you?
Hi, I'm doing so good. Thank you guys so much for having me. It's such an honor. Love the show. Every episode is so rich. So I just am excited to share all the blonding goodness.
Well, thank you. Thank you for being on here with us today and spending your time and your knowledge with all of our viewers. So let's jump in. Let's jump into blondes, right? So how do you start? How do you really capture and figure out what is the suitable color for the guest sitting in your chair?
Okay, so when it comes to blonding, there are so many millions of different shades and color combinations that you can do, and as well as techniques. So what I'm going to share is a little bit about after you've already put the structural bones of your technique into that head of hair, whether it be balayage or foiling or what have you, then comes the part where you should be already thinking about this before you put those structural bones in. And that would be, I have a couple ladies here for you. I'm going to show you. You're going to decide whether or not you're going to do some color melting and going maybe a bit of a shade darker on their root and kind of getting something that's a soft, nice blend from dark all the way to light through the ends. Where, thank you so much. So color melting, when you think about that, you're really stretching the product. Maybe you're creating a depth, a mid-tone, and an end color. And then what we're going to be doing today is a bit more of like a shadow tone. So when I think of a shadow tone, I genuinely think of it looking like there's a bit of a shadow, like something sitting over her head, casting a bit of a shadow on her root. And so it's not something that you're going darker than her natural, but something that you're kind of going maybe somewhere in between where you've lifted her and her natural color, just to cast a bit of a shadow so that it has a softer outgrowth. And then there's, of course, like smudging, and there's so many different titles, and it's not to be confused with, there's really nothing new under the sun. It's just thinking about the effect you want the hair to have.
I love the way that you just said that, Briana, because It's true. It's like there's only so many different ways that you can cut hair or color hair. And sometimes I think we try to be innovators and come up with all these like techniques that have never before been seen and will blow people's mind. Like when baby lights suddenly became like a thing, and I was like, literally fine.
You're like a fine
that we
weave?
learned in school. Like, I don't understand.
You mean a fine weave?
But maybe what you could do what you just went over is kind of, I think right now is very relevant right now for blondes, because it's not as, some people still like to see those highlights growing out of their skull. If you like, they want that highlight really close. But in order to make it modern, really the trend is some kind of like a shadow type of effect. So maybe very quickly, when you talked about the difference between a gloss, shadow tone, color melting, root smudge, I heard those. Talk to us about which guest is looking for, like, what is the effect of those in terms of which guest? How do you choose for which?
Great question. So it's what you want to see left on the hair, right? So it's what you want the client. Also, it's about them maintaining their hair as well. So you were saying some clients like to see the highlights growing out of their head, but you're wanting to transition them into something modern. You might go for something more like a root smudge where you can still see the highlights, but it's soft at the root. That little bit of depth at the root will give you, just enough to make that outgrowth softer, but they still like to see.
They still feel like themselves. They're like, my roots are still blonde. Like, they know we're talking about them too. Like they know who they are.
Totally know who they are. Totally. And then when you're thinking of something of a shadow tone, I like to use those things for like bleach and tones, or somebody who you want it to still have that soft effect to it. Or it's a highlight that they're not so obsessed with it going straight to the root. And a color melt would be great for somebody who typically like balayaging, and it's not limited to this, but when you do a balayage and you're kind of already creating the bones of the structure that melt from one color to the other to the next, when you're choosing a technique to tone with, you're just bringing out what you've already created. And it's almost like contouring a face. Your cheekbones are there, but they could be there a little more,
I like that analogy. Yep, for sure.
Thanks.
So you're going to demo one of those for us today, right?
Yeah. So I'm going to go in and just kind of show you a really quick shadow tone and talk to you a little bit about that formulations and stuff like that.
Good.
So my lovely model today, she is a bit of your balayage effect. Okay. But I'm going to create a bit of a shadow tone within that balayage. I still want to see everything that I've created in the hair. And I've chosen 2 colors. So I have 6 stroke 0 mixed with 7 stroke 1. And that's Color Touch. It's a demi-permanent color touch. And the reason I chose a level 6-7 is because I wanted something that is going to soften the root without going darker than what her natural already is. And you also want to think about your really experimental clients who are going to change their color. You know what I mean? And they might want to come in and be super blonde the next time they come in. So if you go in with like a level 4 or something that you can't necessarily, easily lift, you're creating a lot more work. Yeah, a lot more work for yourself. And also it's something that you're going to have to deal with banding. And so you're always looking to the future. You're looking to the present. You're looking to the future. And you're thinking about longevity and suitability for your client.
Brianna, can you just turn your mannequin and just see if we can face a little tiny bit?
That would make a lot of sense.
That way you can actually see the technique you're doing while you're going. The words are all great. Now we just want to see what's happening with your hands too.
Thanks.
So I'm watching you apply it. Go ahead. I was just going to say, I'm watching you apply it and then comb it through. Tell me more about that.
So I'm getting a very controlled amount of product on my brush. So a very nice controlled amount of product. I'm applying the majority of that product to the root and lifting my wrist to flick the product down. And then I'm able to turn this over. And sometimes I'll hold a comb and a brush in my hand if I don't have this tool. And then I would just switch tools and I'll give it one comb down and then out. Because you don't want to drag. You're not dragging the product all the way down to where you're combing it. You're just giving it a variegated effect throughout this line of demarcation right here. And another reason that it has such a softness to it as well is because the hair is damp. So when you're working with wet or damp hair, not wet, you don't want it soaking wet, but if you're working with damp hair, it's going to help spread that product through a little bit softer, and you're not going to get any kind of blotching or any kind of spots anywhere you don't want them.
Really nicely diffuses the colors. Right. Tell me while you're doing that about some of your favorite color formulations.
Sure. So I actually, depending on the client, of course, and depending on what they're starting with, I actually love to tone with Wella Illumina. And Illumina is actually technically a permanent line that I use a pastel developer to cut down the ammonia content. And what it does is it kind of slightly softens the base and really softens all of the colors together, because it just kind of just barely nudges up a little bit of their natural, brings down a little bit of the highlight, and gives a really really high shine pearly effect to the hair. So my favorite formulas there would be 616, 781 for a shadow tone. Maybe through the ends, I'll use like a 101. 960 has a lot of violet, so I use that like a little touch of extra 960.
Brianna, can I jump in while you're still doing that?
Please.
I just want to go through while you're throwing out your formula, because I think this will help people understand why you're not everybody speaks in like stroke 1, stroke 0, right? So like help talk about tonality choices, because I feel like they'll start to see a commonality. Like, are you typically choosing ashier, cooler tones as you're doing this because the roots are generally warmer? Or just tell us some of what those formulas, like those numbers, mean, so people can understand. I think that might not be using that particular color line.
Absolutely. Yeah, sometimes people want exactly your secret sauce. But I completely understand. So I do like to use something that has a bit of a cooler tone to it, because you're combating the warmth, or you're neutralizing the warmth, or you're using the warmth. So typically when I'm going in at the root area, I'm not necessarily wanting to create more warmth right there. And hot roots and red. This is typically speaking for blondes, you're kind of shying away from that a little bit. So you're softening the entire look by using something that has more of a violet tone, an ash tone. And it's depending on how high you lift them. If you lift them really light, you wouldn't necessarily use something like a blue tone, because you would see it too much. So I stick within the violet tones.
Makes sense.
Yeah. So I would do the entire head like this.
Leaving out that front piece, just as it is completely untouched? Leaving out this
front piece, leaving it completely alone. And then, and I would leave that alone pretty much throughout, like the entire time. I'll even apply this end color. So now I'm going in and I'm adding an end tone. Sometimes there'll be a mid in between, right? You want to be very careful that you're placing the hair away from the area that you're working, but not smushing any of the roots onto those ends. It's really important. This is a big, beautiful brush. It's massive, which is really nice for applying an end color. I usually work very small with my tools, and this is the one incident where I get like rather large with my brush because it goes on so quickly. I can melt it through the root area, bring it all the way down through the ends. And I'm using a level 10 violet. So that would be a 10 stroke 6. And then a level 9 ash violet, which is a 916 in Wella's Color Touch. So I'm using the same type of a demi through the ends here, so there'll be no problem when I'm rinsing this color as far as what shampoo and how do I treat it, because I'm using the same line within the same line of products. And I would tone the entire head before touching those front pieces, because ash absorbs light, warm colors reflect light. So even if this is slightly warmer, it's also going to appear slightly brighter and slightly lighter. Yeah. So for me, that's always like, that's what they want, and if you overtone that area, I feel like your client's going to be like, what happened to my money piece?
Why does my hair look so dark? And you're like,
it's so dark. And you're like, well, it's a level 10. It's just a little slightly silver. It'll come out in a couple washes. That
girlfriend, they want level 13 from
that never works.
100%.
That never ever works. You can't the whole wash it up and talk to me in a week. It's not happening. So I take all of that into consideration, and I'm just liberally applying this color. I'm not having to melt a mid-shaft color in there because I know that the structural integrity of my balayage is there and there's nothing to melt away. It's just tone at this point, and just kind of softly smudging from the root in through the ends. And now at the very, very end, I would even let this process for about 5 minutes. Make sure you have a towel to wipe your hands off. You need to work really, really clean, because when you touch those money pieces, this is where things could go very wrong. And then now you're balayaging out something you just accidentally put in there, right? Mm-hmm. So we want to avoid that. I split this into two, and I deal with this front money piece last. And at this point, sometimes I'll even lay them back in the bowl. And I literally do the exact opposite of what I did, which is I'll apply the end color from the root all the way through the ends on the entire front. And this is a cool little trick, okay? Because what's happening is, like I said, I'm using Color Touch for both. So it's okay that the colors are overlapping each other, okay? So because basically what you're doing is you're combining two formulas that are going to create a different level. So my level, I used a level 6 and 7 on the root throughout, and then I'm using a level 9 and 10. Well, what's in between a 6 and 7 and a 9 and 10? An 8, right? Somewhere around an 8. So I'm going to place this.
My math.
I'm like, did you have to think about that?
Don't make me do math. I know. Okay, so now I'm gonna pick up a clean brush, brand new brush, elevate this hair at a 90, pick up a beautiful clean section for my shadow tone, apply to the back, apply to the front, heavily at the root, and whisking it up.
Smart, Brianna. I like it.
Heavily at the root, whisking it up, and boom. And then I literally watch that like a hawk. I don't leave it side, and I sit there and I stare at it and I smudge it, and then I even rinse some of the ends, and then I rinse some of the mids, and then I smudge it again, and then I rinse it off.
Makes sense. So it's all about the layering. It's all about the progression of tone and really making sure that you have soft levels of lightness and darkness that follow through, so that you blur out any lines of demarcation that potentially could have been put in within the highlighting process.
100%, 110%. And I'm using the color motion line. Okay. So then I'll just use something like this that has Wellaplex bond builders, but also something that's going to lock the color in there like crazy. Send them home with something that's going to lock the color in like color motion like crazy, because longevity is like client retention. So when you have the bones of the structure are good, the tonality is not going anywhere, and they're like, oh, I could get 6 months out of my hair, and you're bugging them to come back, that's a client for life. Even though it sounds like you wouldn't want that, that is a client for life, because they know nobody can do it like you can.
Well said. Great education, great techniques. Loved your analogies. Thank you so much for being on the show with us and sharing your talent with us. We really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nick and Amon. I love you guys. You guys are great. Thank you so much for having me. Such an honor.
Of course. Thanks. We'll hope to see you soon. Stay well.
All right. Thanks. Take care, guys.
See ya.
All right, Ammon. So Miss Sonya Dove is up next with more inspiration around blonding. So let's
the legend herself. Let's bring her on.
Legend. All right.
Sonya, I don't say that in any kind of a mocking tone, right? Like, I genuinely believe you as a legend. So just before any of the audience members think I may be like teasing you, like, she is literally the legend. So I'm not making fun of you. It's all this.
Oh my God. Now I'm nervous. I have to live up to that. title.
No pressure, Sonya.
So, Sonya, since you've been on the show before, you're no stranger how it goes. We're going to get right into it. We're going to get right into doing some hair. Everybody knows this is about brilliant blondes. So why don't you talk to us about the technique that you're going to show today and who it would be good for?
Yes, Salmon. So this technique is called Strand Lights. And as you can see, this is my mannequin completely finished. The Strand Lights is concentrating on the front framing of the hair, which sounds very simple, but there's many, many times that our guests and our clients in the salon pull their hair back into a tight ponytail, and they have the complaint when they pull their hair back, when they have a hairline like myself, they see dark areas that aren't highlighted. So this technique really negates those dark areas and has that beautiful brightness all the way, even on those tiny, tiny little baby hairs that you can usually not get hold of. So both sides are done here for you, but what I'm going to do, I am going to redo just one of the sides. I'm using Blondor Powder Lightener, which is our Weller Lightener, and 20 volume. First thing first, a couple of little tips in the preparation. What I like to do with this technique is I take my regular foil and I cut them in half. So I make them a lot smaller. It saves a lot of time. Second tip is I do not section the front out. The front is not sectioned out like you would normally do. What I like to do is, if I turn my lovely three-legged model round, the new model, by the way, the new model casting, the new client for the moment. What I like to do is I pin the hair back and I am taking a diagonal. So I'm just going to make sure you can see that. So the first step is key and very, very important. It must be a really good diagonal. And I have a little picture here to show any of our guests so we can see that diagonal shape. Second, in this section, you just do a regular weave, nothing fancy, just a straightforward weave. Now the weave is quite thick and heavy. It's at least 50% of the hair. You could do 50% and higher. I place my foil in and then just apply my lightener all the way through. You can see now why I like to use thin foils, smaller foils. It's because if you use a large foil, a regular size foil, let's say, it would go back too far into the hairline. This is just the hairline. I'm going to fold this up in half there. And then tighten it, just lock that in. So I would work on one side first and then go over to the other. Now the next point, and this is really, really important, is I let go of the hair, I hold it gently, and there are two ways to do this. I'm really going to make sure we can get nice and close in there. This foil, I go halfway across. So it halfway from the front, I find my middle point, I go up, so I go straight up and across to the hairline. And that is my next section. I pull the hair back using my clip. And then.
So Sonya, would you say that that's like maybe a ½ inch of the hairline back from the temple?
It's about 3/4 of an inch.
Okay.
Nick. I take my weave. Yeah, that's a great question. This is why it's really, really important to have the foils cut in half, because you're just working on that hairline. And it seems very simple on the mannequin because the mannequin hairline is really unreal. None of us have got hairlines like the mannequin. Well, maybe Ammon has. Sorry, Ammon.
Let's not talk about my hairline right now. Sonya, you made me blush on my own show. Don't do it.
Yes, because you see, the hairline it doesn't have any areas of recession on a mannequin. And you'll get a big aha moment once I've worked up a couple more foils, and you'll really see it happening. So fold in half again, fold in half here. There's my next one. So they're almost like steps. Going across, halfway, put the rat tail comb in and carry on up. And it's
so half the foil and then a triangle to the front hairline. Got it.
Yes. So basically, you know what it looks like? It looks like a deck of cards. When you have a deck of cards, if anyone plays poker, not that I do, but when you splay out the deck of cards, it creates like a fan shape. It's the same idea. And I actually have a picture of how it looks with all the foils in. And the reason I came up with this technique is when you come to those areas where it's very, very fine on the hairline. See this hair here? I'm going to give myself as an example. You are highlighting this hair. If you can pick it up between your fingers, it goes in the foil. So you're getting all these little ones. Now, there are instances when you have the baby hairs and the hair around the hairline that you cannot even pick up between your fingers. I have a little trick for that, and I address that at the end. So I'm just going to put this foil.
Sonya,
yes.
While you're closing that up, so I think there's a couple schools of thought on the whole hairline piece, right? I know me as a colorist, when I go in there, I'm always like, do I want to highlight it? Do I not? Because I'm always afraid of it being spotty. Is there any tips you can give to making sure it doesn't look spotty?
Well, what's important actually is the best tip for it not looking spotty is to go in with this other step after, to be honest. So I'm just working up there, Nick, and I just want to, this is the pattern of how it looks in the end. It's basically,
can you come closer?
A little closer to camera? Okay.
Got it. I see what you mean now by the deck of cards. Got it.
Deck of cards, steps, but remembering that you do pick up this, you do all the little baby hairs, you just work on the hairline. And for the spottiness, once these foils are in, I take my guess, and remember, we're doing both sides. So I work up from the ear to the recession, ear to the recession, and then carry on up. And both the center foils just meet. I take my guess to the basin. I put her back in the basin. And then with a mascara brush, a disposable mascara brush, I dip it in my lightener. And anywhere where I was not able to get in close enough, I just put the mascara brush on the tiny baby hairs, and it just softens it all in.
Softens it.
And that, Nick, stops the sort of spotting and blotching. Yeah. And if you do get any spotting or blotching, this covers it up anyway.
It's like a little cheat. Who doesn't like a little cheat when it comes to like a quick color technique? So, I mean, that's really smart. Yeah. And actually that's the perfect answer, because I was wondering myself about those baby hairs. And is there a particular client that you would be like, make sure you don't because of the way they wear their hair? Like, or is it pretty standard that this is for anybody who wants to wear their hair back?
It's pretty standard, I'll be honest with you. And even if they don't want to wear their hair back, it's a way of making sure that all the front hairline is really, really completely lightened in a beautiful, soft way that you'll not get any dark areas at all. And also I wanted to mention, I'm sure a lot of the last little point about it, the viewers might be thinking is, if you're highlighting the front and everything else, I would start at the back, working up to the front with a lower volume of developer, and then move to a higher volume of developer when I came to the hairline front, if it was the last area I was doing. So that's just a little tip. But yes, that's...
So talk to us. Yeah, I love this technique. Talk to us about toning. Would you tone this? Do you have a favorite formula? How do you approach that?
It really depends in the consultation. Most 99% of times I do tone it. I tone with a demi-permanent or, as Brianna said, Illumina. But you have to be careful with the toning, because if you're creating brightness, you've got to make sure you don't use a toner that's too dark or got too much ashing or too much blue. And actually watching Brianna, that toning technique that Brianna shared on her mannequin would be perfect for this mannequin, because you wouldn't get, you still get the brightness and the lightness of the front, but the depth throughout the back. So it's a perfect add-on. You know, this would be what Brianna said, and I love it, the bones. I've never heard that expression before, but
I haven't heard that. I like that too, yeah.
I like it too.
So this would be the bones, and then you could tone it like with Brianna's technique, or just use one toner all over, but start at the back, and then as you come to the front, literally leave the front on like 1-2 minutes.
Sonya, you know what I love about this? It's giving me the throwback. Like, so Dua Lipa, in case you guys don't know, famous pop singer at the moment, but she has brought back this very kind of chunky highlight notion, right? And I'm seeing a technique right now that even if you didn't do the rest of her hair, could be very like on trend with that Dua Lipa vibe, with that just heavy face framing kind of accent, even if you didn't put any of the blending highlights throughout the rest of the hairstyle.
Yeah, absolutely. You're absolutely correct. I absolutely love her. And we are, even if people don't like it, we are going to see a big return to that very strong heaviness.
Here they come.
Yeah, it's coming back. Yeah.
Chunky highlights marching their way back into our lives.
Yes.
They're here already. I got
like, how many back-to-back slices on this one?
And you just carry on until you get to the center. It's that straightforward.
Sonya, great technique as always. Thank you so much for your knowledge, for your excitement. This is very on trend and a great build off of what Brianna said today. So as always, thank you for joining us on this show and continuing to make our Unveiling Beauty library of episodes just robust with really great information. And that's it for now. We will see you soon, okay? You take care of yourself.
See you soon. Bye.
Bye.
See ya.
All right, Ammon, such good techniques. I'll tell you, I was like really like leaning in to like see what she was doing, because I thought it was really fascinating. So I always love when guests are really intriguing and it's stuff that we could take right away, bring it back to the salon and use it on our guests. So speaking of great shows and techniques, what's next on the horizon for us?
So next, coming up on Unveiling Beauty, we're going to be celebrating National Balayage Week. Why not, right?
Why not?
This episode is going to be specially brought to us by Matrix. So National Balayage Week brought to you by Matrix on Unveiling Beauty. Next episode, be there or be square, my friend.
That's right. Well, I will be there for sure. So I look forward to seeing all of you then. In the meantime, take care and we'll see you soon. Have a good one, everyone.
Bye.